دين الأنبياء إنه الإسلام نور وضياء قسما بالله رب العالمين ما ارتضينا غير دين الله دين فهو دين الحق دين الأنبياء إنه الإسلام نور وضياء
هذا الدر وهذه الكلم بمديح الهادي تنتظم ضاءت بالمختار ظلم وحلا في مولده النغم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah and welcome to Finding Me on the ITV networks. Today a very special interview with a very beautiful woman. It's August, it's Women's Month, and we're speaking to different women in order to get their different viewpoints about how to create a better South Africa, how to make a more passionate appeal to your lifestyle and change to your lifestyle, and also to create this new kind of feeling that is desperately needed in South Africa. So with that, I have with me Janine, Schall, Emden. Welcome, Janine. Thank you for being here. It's taken us a very long time to do
Thank
this.
you for having me, Quraysha.
Yeah, it's like karma has always just prevented us for the longest time, but I think we were meant to speak in Women's Month.
And now we're here.
And now we're here. So Janine, you have made some fantastic changes to your lifestyle, to the way you view your interaction with your family, with your body, with what you consume. And I think Islamically, it's also a very important thing because ultimately you are what you eat.
Mm-hmm.
It affects your personality, your character. It shapes how you interact with other human beings as well. But also what I think is missing a lot in our lifestyles is how we view the world, our interaction with nature, with animals, etc. So you've come a long way. I mean, you were in Venezuela for the longest time, you were in Europe, and now you're in South Africa. Have the three continents shaped the way you view your lifestyle, your interaction with humans, and of course your change now to a zero waste lifestyle?
I think, yes, of course, your life shapes you and the people that you meet shape you accordingly. I think there is always a bit of an underlying person or an underlying quest, something that we're looking for, and you take out what you need from different people that you meet. And also there are different moments that you can actually, that you're ready to hear that message or not. So I think, yes, I come from a family where I think we're very just normal, traditional, my parents are not particularly keen or interested in the environment, or look at also some of my choices with a bit of bemusement. But I think, yeah, they also admire it. So it's also, it's not like I've distanced myself from them at the same time. So it's from teachings, from, very basic values and how we see ourselves and how we live in the world. I think I've interpreted them a bit differently
Right.
to how they initially saw them for me. But I think definitely my family is also sees my choices as something something that they look up to, I guess. Yeah.
So how did you go? What took you from just engaging in the normal activity of all individuals in South Africa, or many individuals in South Africa, to what's this change now to zero waste? To watching what you eat, how you grow your food, etc. And then of course you make your own. You make your own soaps. You make your own detergents. Why this? People will say, "Oh, extreme radical." It's like you can buy it. Why don't you just go into the store and buy
dirty
it?
hippie. I'm a dirty hippie.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I think we all need a bit of a catalyst, no? When we make, or at least I did need a catalyst, because I think the seed was there for a very, very long time. I mean, we've been. My family and I, we've been environmentally conscious for the longest time, and every time I would put something in the rubbish, I would have this feeling inside me like, this is not right, we're just throwing these things into the landfill. They're probably going to be taken by the wind and just polluting our environment, polluting our oceans. And when we see something, a plastic, we just kind of squirm and we say, these people, they don't know, or somebody doesn't know, but it could be ours. It could be the plastic that we threw into the trash and thought it would just go away, but it doesn't go away. So I mean, those thoughts have been with me for a long time, but I think the real click came, and it all just came together, was when I was forced to change my lifestyles by finding out some of the issues that my son was dealing with, health issues, my youngest son. So the catalyst was my youngest son was diagnosed with some intolerances, and so it just, he has intolerance to dairy, he has intolerance to gluten. And from that moment on, when he was 9 months old, it just forced us to stop and to just think about everything that we were doing. So it all started, we changed our diet completely, cut out dairy and cut out all sorts of gluten from one moment to the next. And I just started looking into everything that we had in our household. What did we clean with? What did we clean our clothes with? What did we put on their skin? What are all these things? Because he was also suffering from severe asthma and things. It wasn't only skin eruptions, it was also like just his immune system was weakened all generally. So that's how it all started. But it all kind of sort of came together, because then by looking into recipes to make creams or to make detergents, I came across what is called now, it's coined the zero waste lifestyle. And it just kind of clicked for me. It all came together because it just gave me the space of thinking, this is good for the environment, this is good for our health, this is what we have to do. And it is feasible. Of course, in some countries it's more easily done than others, and our environment here in South Africa and in Pretoria doesn't necessarily allow, there are not a wealth of shops where you can buy things unpackaged, but still you start finding out, and you have sort of a list of priorities, and you make your way through that list. And then as for living more ethically, I think in how we eat as well, it came together. It was just the seed that was already there. I think for many years we've been talking about we should consider going plant-based, going vegan, and we somehow never had that moment where we had to really just sit down and re-examine how we lived. And that, in a way, it was a blessing, that we actually had to find that moment.
So to find that moment, you also have to make a conscious effort, isn't it? And it's a conscious decision that you said just doesn't come like that, by the way. It takes effort from your part.
Yeah, it does. Some people just have to watch a movie and then they can change from one day to the next, like a documentary. And there are many excellent documentaries out there that will show you why this is a good idea, and with
how
reputed voices.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. With well-reputed voice, also for your health. There are people that do it for different reasons, but it doesn't really matter why you do it. As long as you do it, and then your world starts opening also to even if you do it for your own health, your world starts opening up to animal rights and to the environment and the footprint that animal agriculture has on our environment and on global warming as well, the impact it has on global warming. So you start realizing all these things. And I think for us, it was all already there. We just needed that moment where it was worth just inputting, investing the time that it needed to shift kind of the way that we lived.
But you haven't stopped there. You're sharing your information, you're sharing your knowledge, you go to the schools, you're sharing with communities, etc. So what are the things that you have found that was easier to teach, especially children or the communities that you've been with?
I think for children, there are certain messages that really come they come very easily. Like most children, I think you'll be hard-pressed to find a child that doesn't love animals, right? Most children will, appreciate being in nature. I think all children
enjoy the outdoors.
Exactly, enjoy the outdoors. So I think there are easy messages, with plastics, like it just doesn't go away. They see an animal that, if you see, say, a documentary or you see something about, animals ingesting plastics, they'll immediately realize that this is bad, this is not something we want to do. And so it's very easy to get to them and to have children understand. What is a bit more difficult is then to actually have them change lifestyles, because they don't make the consumer choices in their households. It's their parents that do it for them. So that's where I think is one of the big hurdles is, if we just talk to the children, it's good, and you're planting a seed and you're making them think about it, but the socialization of the household is still there. And so I think we need to, that's kind of what I want to do next, is let's also
bridge
talk
that
about
gap.
exactly, bridge that gap and start talking also, because again, you know, we live in a system and in which many good people do bad things, and just because they don't know better, because they're socialized in a way that just, you know, that doesn't make them question, you know.
Yep, but talking about that, you say many good people do bad things and they're socialized in a way, and you were speaking earlier about the South African situation in apartheid, where we take so many things which are just not normal, but we look at it and we think it's normal. Like, can you just give us an idea of what are the things that bother you when you go out?
Yes, when, for instance, we were talking about how we living as an international family here, you know, what are the things? I grew up in a country that is very unequal, and in a way, you would have thought maybe I should have been socialized in seeing some things as that are okay, but I think maybe it's you just can't help sometimes but noticing things when they're just not right. You know, when I go out of this house with my child and with my children, but specifically the older child, I want him to be able to see those things. When we go out of this estate, this gated community that we live in, and we see a queue of people that are trying to access the estate in the morning, and they're all black, and my child if he doesn't see that this is not okay, then I'm not doing a good job as a mom. I need him to see those things. I need him to be able to question what is wrong. You know, what is wrong with this picture? This is not okay, and we can do something about it.
And you're talking about that, it just reminded me when I was in Palestine as well, and we were at the border, and you see these big queues of Palestinians queuing on the one side, and then all the foreigners just going in, and if you don't think there's something wrong with that picture, there's something wrong with you as well.
Exactly.
So it's exactly the same, and like you very eloquently said to me right at the start, it's still apartheid.
It is still apartheid.
Yeah, and this is the reality that we're living in, but people are just not conceptualizing this. They're taking this as a norm, as if to say, well, that's how it is, you know, and we're losing that ability to internally reflect, I think, on our own ethics, our own values. The consciousness is beginning to slip away in many ways, I think, so, and that's why we find this very traumatic situation, schizophrenia almost, in what South Africa is gradually becoming.
Yeah, I very much agree.
But we're going into break. I'm going to come back and talk to you a little bit about the other work that you do. We'll see you after the break.
بمديح الهادي تنتظم ضاءت بالمختار ظلم وحلا في مولده النغم بمديح الهادي تنتظم ضاءت بالمختار ظلم وحلا في مولده النغم.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome to the second segment of Finding Me today in the ITV networks with my very special and beautiful guest. And we're speaking about the environment, we're speaking about lifestyle changes, lifestyle choices. Janine, before we went on to the break, you spoke about, you know, those small things that you can incorporate into your lifestyle. And I see you've got a lovely little basket here for us. These are practical ways in which we can start making small changes, you know, even if it is inculcating in your children, like you said, you know, take it from the child. We need to move to the adults as well. Hopefully to the viewership who was watching this, will get an idea of the things that they can start doing to make a change.
Well, I think, you know, when people hear zero waste lifestyle, they get a shock because they think, oh God, you know, this is like going to take so much work. And maybe initially that shift does take a bit of work, but I think there are also very easy things that you can do to substitute. One is don't buy your water bottles, just take your water with you. So for my kids, I have these stainless steel water bottles and they always take them to school.
So we're avoiding the plastic bottles, in
exactly, at all costs, because those bottles are a disaster for our environment. I mean, they've been, and the water that you get from the tap is quite good. We've had it tested, and what we do use is we do some charcoals. It's like a charcoal bar that you can buy. There's some online stores and retailers that sell those. They're called. The ones that I use, can I say the name?
Yes.
It's called the Quraysha charcoal. And it's just, you put it in the water and it purifies some of the chemicals, like if they have, for instance, chlorine and so on, after 3 hours it will have taken it out of the water. So we use that water and then just put it in their own water bottles, and this is the one I use. Other things that you can do is every time when we go out for food or something, the kids, because we are plant-based, we will use our own
Chopsticks.
Like chopsticks, you know, because we will get, you know, take just vegetable sushi. And so you don't have to use the chopsticks provided there, or you use your own cloth napkins. So there are different easy ways that you can do it. Obviously, like if you go shopping, you have your own tote bag. What I also do to avoid the plastic, I don't think I have it here. It's like little mesh bags that I use to put the vegetables in. So instead of having those plastic bags where the vegetables are, I have...
When you're weighing the
Exactly.
vegetables, etc. Okay.
Yeah.
So you ask them not to use the plastic and you carry your own.
That's right. And you just have your own, and I have yet to have any problem. Nobody says anything. I mean, people actually admire the bags, you know, because they have little ribbons on them and they're quite pretty.
Okay.
So,
And what about the toothbrushes?
so instead of having a plastic toothbrush, we use wooden toothbrushes. They're made of bamboo, and you can just compost them. We have a composter. We actually have two. You just pull out the bristles and you can have it composted, and it doesn't need to go to landfill.
Right.
So we have it also for the kids. There's also
And are
the
these
kids
easily
size.
accessible? Can you get them?
These are accessible on online retailers, as far as I know. I'm not sure there's anybody here in Pretoria that sells them in the store, but there are online retailers like Faithful to Nature that will sell these things. Then we were talking about, you know, how we make our own. I make our own beauty products and kind of skin products. So we have like a skin cream that is just on the basis of shea butter and cocoa butter and some essential oils.
And you've made that from scratch?
Yeah, yeah. And so this is like a tooth powder that I use. It's almost out. I need to remake it. And this is just with baking soda and some essential oils and some coconut oil.
That's for brushing your teeth?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you don't buy any of the Colgate? And
Well, but at the moment we're still buying like a natural toothpaste because my husband prefers that one. He still can't completely go on the baking soda.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm phasing him out slowly.
Fantastic. Okay, so besides this, so you're managing in your own minuscule way the environment and your home, etc. But you also are a professional and you do disaster risk management. So it seems that, you know, managing the world, or whether it's on the local level or international level, is something that you're passionate about. Tell us a little bit about your work.
Well, yes, I mean, just to say, people think I just sit at home and make my creams, you know. But no, this is something, just to kind of finish this segment or this subject, this is something you do once every 3-4 weeks, maybe every month and a half, and then you have it for a while. So it's not something you have to constantly remake. So it's just the beauty is that you don't actually have to go to the store to buy it. So
Right, it's always there.
yeah, it's always there, and you make it yourself. And so, yeah, so what do I do for work? At the moment, I'm working with an international, it's like an international network of disaster risk reduction organizations in more than 150 countries. And so basically what we're doing, or what I specifically am doing at the moment, is to look at vulnerabilities at the local level. So because when you speak about disasters and disaster management, you usually think about the UN, the United Nations, you think about international bodies, but often these international bodies are not necessarily recognizing what people at the local level see as a disaster and need actually to mitigate the disasters. And what we've been seeing is that often when you ask at a community level, what is the major threat that you're facing, and you don't actually put words in their mouth in terms of, you know, hurricane or earthquake. Natural disasters. They will often say things like drug abuse. They will say things like unemployment. They will say things like, we can't feed our children. And that is a disaster. So at the moment, we're kind of redefining the whole concept of disaster in the way that what the community see as kind of the low level but really extensive disaster risk that they face and that costs the most lives.
And so if you redefine this and if you manage to get it into the policy papers, does that then ultimately your objective is that hopefully it will change the way in which people or policymakers then respond to these communities?
Yes, and we also have to be careful with that because we've been working on this actually for over 10 years, well, just close to 10 years now. And it has actually been recognized by the UN system in the way that they speak about, you know, trying to include the most vulnerable and so on in their policy frameworks. But you have to be careful that in the end the changes are real, because if the changes are just on the language level, your message has been co-opted. And so you just have to, in a way, try and yes, feed into the kind of official policy frameworks, but you also have to have something to contrast that. You also have to say, you know, what you're saying is right to a certain degree, but you know, we have these and these examples and these nuances. So where you have to, in some countries, definitely include yourself and include your information in the policy frameworks and in those sort of indicators, the official indicators, you cannot lose your own message. So you want both.
You want both, definitely.
Yeah.
And you want change in the community as
Yeah,
well.
of course. You don't just want to get the information. You want the communities to be able to do something with that information. And that's what many of the organizations that we're working with at the local level do. They actually work with the communities that they can then bridge the gaps between the communities themselves, the local authorities, the sort of businesses at the local level, and make a change and make a difference.
And I think another part of your work was what is perhaps very relevant and prevalent in South Africa today, and that is about corruption.
Right, yeah, I worked with an international corruption organization before this work, and I think, you know, the common link between what I do is the communities, is the local level. So it's I've been working with many different topics. I've been working on issues like microfinance. I've been working on corruption. I've been working on disaster risk reduction. But I think what links my work is, what is the community's need? What is it that the local people need and the most vulnerable need?
So is that kind of work being done here in South Africa and empowering local communities to respond, for example, in terms of corruption, to respond or to articulate what they perceive as disaster, etc.?
Yes, I think there are organizations that, in terms of corruption, there are organizations that definitely are doing work here in South Africa. They are providing an opportunity for people also to be able to denounce when corruption is happening. So there are avenues for that. I'm not sure how aware people are that these avenues exist.
Yeah,
so that is
yeah.
a problem, of course. But I know of organizations like Corruption Watch that are holding the space quite a lot, but they also work more, I think, at the policy level. So they are finding their way to try and get the community to voice their concerns, to my knowledge. I haven't worked with them, so I don't know exactly to the extent that they're doing it. But I know that they are opening channels for people also to be able to report on corruption.
And in terms of the disaster risk?
In terms of the disaster risk, there is an organization that is mostly academic at the moment here in South Africa, and they're based in the university at Potchefstroom.
Okay.
But they are, yes, I'm not sure to what extent they're working with local communities, and that's something we need to find out now.
So when you incorporate all of this now, so it's about managing lifestyles, it's about managing how we interact with each other, with individuals, etc. What has been for you the greatest take-home message in terms of your own, and then spreading it out amongst the others? I mean, you have a Facebook page, you post on Instagram, and perhaps you can even give us, you know, the way somebody wants to access your blog, etc., so that they can come and learn from you.
So the way that I've chosen to communicate my message is in a very transparent way. Just show how we're doing it. You know, what do we eat on a daily basis? And I'm not styling my images and making them look beautiful. It's just what's on the table. That's what we're eating. You know, it's just what are we doing? Where do we go? What sort of toys do the kids use? You know, it's very simple, day-to-day issues that this is how we're doing it. There are ways of doing it better, but just these are easy ways of doing it. So just people get it, because it just has a little bit of this intimidating feel, you know, zero waste, being vegan, and like all of these big labels and big words. But you know, there's a very normal family doing very normal things, and they just do it a little bit differently.
We're at the end, but I just want to highlight this last point, is that when you're talking about a normal family doing normal things, a very pertinent comment you made about a domestic worker and how you perceive her and her role in the home. If you can just elaborate on that quickly in 30 seconds.
Well, no, we have the privilege of having someone that helps us twice a week to clean the house, and there's a rule in our house: we have to work with her. There's no one moment where she's here and she's working and we're not. We're cooking, we're cleaning. Even the kids will be making their beds when she's here, because we're equals. We do the same things, and she's actually, this is a privilege that we have, that she's helping us.
And she's here to I suppose, to work with you, not work behind you or clean up after.
That's right.
It's an important message, isn't it? Ultimately about who we are and how we see other people.
It's very simple. It's just, for me, this is how I want my children to grow up. People are the same. It's not just because there's somebody working in your house that you can throw your socks and have them clean up after you. That's just not, that's anathema here. We're not allowed.
Yes. So I'm going to put your details on the screens for people who, if they want to learn from you. But I think the message is powerful, and I want to end with that, is that we are all equals. And for Women's Month, and reflecting on the contributions of women, I think we should start incorporating that understanding just in the way we live, for starters. Don't you think so, Janine?
It would be lovely to see that.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and your ideas, and for all of these beautiful small take-home messages that we can definitely implement in making this world a better place for everyone and for future generations.
Thank you for giving me the space, Quraysha.
You're welcome. في أمان الله والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
قسما بالله رب العالمين وارتضينا غير دين الله دين فهو دين الحق دين الأنبياء إنه الإسلام نور وضياء.
هذا الدر وهذه الكلم بمديح الهادي تنتظم ضاءت بالمختار.